we have another model which I picked up cheap from Ellis Clark Trains when I went to Model Rail Scotland. I believe this model is a Piko model and it's a Deutsche Reichsbahn electric locomotive, and you can see it has been through the wars a little bit, and that's most evident underneath where these parts here seem to be quite badly broken. So we're going to try and fix up this locomotive, but the first thing I think we should do is put it on a piece of test track and see if it actually runs. Okay, here it is on the test track, just some old Hornby track, and I'm using my H&M controller to power this. So let's give it some juice and see what happens. Okay, well that's not so good. The lights do work, that was good, and I did hear the motor running, but it didn't seem to want to move at all. So I think we've got our work cut out to try and get this model back from the brink. So let's get this open up and we'll see how we go. So underneath the locomotive I can see a screw there just between the two bogies, so I think that's just holding the thing together. So let's undo that and then we'll see what we've got. Well, this was quite unexpected. It's quite an unusual model. It's got a very simple pressed steel chassis here, and this panel holds the two bogies together onto it. And we do actually have two motors here, which is quite incredible. And then the body shell is also quite interesting. We have these sections at the front here enclosed where the lighting is, with all these copper contacts. And this also looks as though it picks up from the overhead catenary as well. Not sure how it transmits power down to the motors. I think it must be in this section here. A whole bunch of weights in there. This body is quite heavy, but we do have these plastic bogies, so it's quite a contrast. But two different motors, it's quite incredible. So let's see if we can get these working. So there doesn't seem to be any problems with the wiring on these, or even the pickup from the wheels. The wheels aren't too dirty either. So I'm just going to put some power from the controller onto this, see if it'll work. Okay, it's become evident on this one that this solder here has actually come away from the contact, and therefore that's not transmitting power from here into the motor, so I'd need to solder that part on. Apart from that, it seems to run okay. So let's check the other bogie. So I think this might be quite a simple fix. This motor here seems to be working fine. This one needs a little bit of solder work done on it, and then I think it'll be okay. So let's do that next. Great, that's both bogies working now. So one of the problems on this locomotive is that these spring detail parts on the bottom of the bogies here seem to just break off, and we have one broken one sitting down here on the board. This one is a bit broken and missing a part here. And then we're missing both of them on this bogie, so this is obviously the Achilles heel of this model. It would be near on impossible to get these as spare parts. So if your model is suffering from these being broken off or just hanging off or in pieces, then you're a bit out of luck, a bit like me. But let's get these glued back on, and I'm just going to use Humbrol poly cement for that. Okay, while the glue is drying there, we can try and fix this problem on the roof of the body shell. We do have an extra little insulator here as well. My God, that was a pain in the ass. So we finally managed to get them in, and I realised that the ones that are missing on the top are actually a little bit smaller than the ones down below, and that was what was causing some problem when I tried to get one up here, and it just threw out the whole geometry of this thing. But I finally managed to get them in, okay with two missing, but we're just going to have to live with that, I think, unless we can maybe 3D print these at a later date. But for the time being, I think I'm pretty happy with that. We'll let the glue dry and then we'll get this put back together. Well, this is certainly a fiddly model to take apart and put back together, but before we put it back on the test track just to check it's working okay, let's just check out how much this weighs. So this model weighs 266 grams, but bear in mind there's a few pieces missing off this model. Well, thank God that model worked. I would hate to have to take this apart again. On the plus side, it actually runs really good, and it's very quiet as well. Well, relative for its age. And those two motors as well, I think this would have great pulling power as well. It'd be able to handle quite long trains, I think. Even though it doesn't have any traction tyres, it's still got quite a lot of weight to it. Looking a bit closer on the actual moulding of the body, it's quite good. It's got a lot of vents and hatches and rivet detail on this. Very prototypical of the real locomotive, and it's represented here very well, I think. The grills could be doing with a bit more deep relief on them, but certainly the rivet detail is very pleasing. And it's got these clear numbers on the side here and the Deutsche Reichsbahn logo up here. The glazing is pretty good as well, I think. It's not quite flush fit, but it's not too bad. And the masking between the green and the silver and the black is also very good as well. It's even got metal handrails here on each end. On the roof we saw we had metal pantographs which pick up electricity from the overhead if you want to do that. And we also have these extra parts that have been added on in brown plastic to represent the boards on the top of the roof here. And we had a lot of fun with these little insulators and the metal between it, but it's obviously carrying current around the top of this locomotive. That all said, the body is pretty good, but where this is really let down is in these bogies, which are really quite terrible. And the design with these springs at the bottom, they're so brittle that they're obviously breaking off. This one's not even got it on this side when I picked it up. We do have a cantilever coupling. It's on this side here. It's missing on this end of the locomotive. It looks as though it's been taken off by the previous owner and this piece flattened down, but I guess you could fit a new coupling if you wanted to. And it has these buffers which are just plastic and pushed in here. They're not sprung loaded or anything. The wheels are quite coarse and they have plastic red inserts and chrome outers, and the detail on the bogies is fair enough, but it pales into insignificance compared to the detail on the body. You could almost think that this is made by two different manufacturers. One below is maybe a toy manufacturer and the one above is a model manufacturer. One of the standout things on this model though is the lighting. It really works very well for this model being so old, and there's absolutely no bleed into any other part of the locomotive. There's no interior detail though. As you can see, the motors take up all the space inside this locomotive, and because there's two of them, that's all the space taken up with that. But that said, this is quite an interesting model because it is quite a vintage model now, but yet it still runs really well. And the choice to give this two motors rather than maybe just one motor and the other being a pickup is really quite interesting, and is probably a bit overkill for a model of this size. So should you consider buying one of these? I'm not so sure. I think there are some other locomotives of this era which you could pick up for a good price, which would probably beat this one. And if you did get this one, the bogies are obviously going to be a bit annoying. I'm not sure what you could do to improve those bogies. I don't even think paint's going to help it much. So I paid £35 from this from Ellis Clark, and I actually think that's too high a price for this. It does have a lot of damage on it, some parts are missing, but it does run really well. I think probably about £25 to maybe £30 maximum would have been the best price for this. So I think I overpaid a little bit. So let me know what you thought about my analysis of this model in the comments below. I'd love to know what you think. And if you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps this channel grow. I'll put this on the turntable so you can see all the way around. And in a moment, another video will appear. If you click on that, I'll see you over there. That's it for this video. See ya.